Every cinematographer has their own toolbox, and in this episode, we're going to dive into my toolbox and the tools that I like to use. I admit it, I love gear, so I can't wait to share with you my favorite pieces of gear and how I like to use them in my productions. Like many others, I am self-taught, and I had to be resourceful and efficient with how I grew as a cinematographer. It took me years to find the resources that I needed to help myself grow. So later on in this episode, I give you a quick crash course on how to light a space. So if you're new to cinematography, you're going to want to stick around for that. We are all unique as cinematographers, the way we light, how we light, and the philosophy that we go into set with. So, welcome to the Apple Box Podcast. My name is Danny Lau. I'm your host, and I'm here alongside my co-host, Anthony Valtsinas. Let's get into it.
All right, guys, welcome back to the podcast. I'm here with Danny, cinematographer extraordinaire. And this is going to be a fun episode. We're talking about tools, we're talking about lights, we're talking about, as a cinematographer, what he looks for.
Oh, yeah.
What gets him excited.
I love gear talk.
It's a gear talk episode. It's a nice one. It's a relaxed one.
Yeah.
So let's get into it.
Yeah.
What would you say? Okay. Well, this is gonna be a pretty rapid fire question right off the bat.
Okay.
If you could name right now your favorite cinematography tool, what would it be?
Okay. What do you mean by cinematography tool?
That's up to you to decide.
Favorite cinematography tool?
Because it's a big range.
But
I want to know what that
many
means to
things.
you.
That could be so
that's a classic
many
search.
things. Oh man, Jesus Christ. Well, important or favorite?
This is a guilty pleasure, like what you just like right now.
What I just like right now? That's a very tough question.
It doesn't have to have any meaning. It just could be just for current moment.
Okay, fine. Let's just say online content material to learn from. Like I like to learn.
So
I like what is we call it? Educational content.
Okay, yeah, and since knowing you, I've always known that, and that's actually something that everyone should adopt. Is that always learning educational mindset. Yeah. So what are some of the tools and resources that you always go back to, even daily, probably to consume educational content?
Honestly, I think it's important to balance a little bit between like how to light, for example, like simple things like tutorials, like compositional things, or like it's being inspired by, listening to seminars or listening to direct educational tools, like
but techniques
and all that kind of stuff. Like I think it's important to do that.
Okay.
But I think it's also important to balance between understanding gear as well. I think as a cinematographer, you have to understand your tools, like what's in your toolbox.
Yeah.
Right. So like as gear evolves, especially now, it's so like things are moving so fast.
Nonstop.
Like there's all of a sudden RGB cob lights hit the market out of like, I know that they had like the ProLight Orion 300 at one point, but like, they weren't that powerful. And then all of a sudden the ProLight 675 comes out and supposedly matches a 1.2K and it's full RGB ACL. And I'm just like, what? I'm like, where did this come from? All of a sudden there's 600C and all of a sudden it's like, all of a sudden the 1200D comes out. So there's always going to evolve. And I think if you get stuck, and I'm not just talking about lights, but anything, cameras, everything, right? Like if you just get stuck in something, I feel like it could work for you, sure, right? And it'll work for you for a while until it doesn't. And then by the time like you need to like evolve and you need to catch up with the industry, you're so far behind that you have so much catching up to do. So I think it's important to not only get educational content, but be aware of the content that or the tools that are out there and update yourself on them.
It's kind of like the news. Like you got to be kind of aware of the world events, just like kind of like you got to be aware of the world events in our industry.
Yes.
Like there's always new tech, especially now. It's like literally exponential growth every month. And that's something I want to adopt as well for myself. It's just you need that constant update. Whether you're fully diving into it, it's up to you.
Yeah.
But you can, as long as you have the feed of information, you can hop back into that stream, like pick things up and then come back.
Exactly. Like you don't have to like own everything, or you don't have to necessarily have used everything, but you have to understand what it does and that it exists.
Yeah.
Like LED walls. I've never used an LED wall before. I've seen it. I've been in front of it. I've seen people operate it. Never used it in any of my productions before, right? But I know it exists. And if you didn't know that LED walls exist, and all of a sudden LED walls have evolved so far into the future that now like that's all they use, let's say, and the technology has been so high, all of a sudden when you get in production and you're like, they only hire people who use LED walls. This is a ridiculous example, but just for the sake of the point.
Yeah.
Now you got to go way back and understand what an LED wall even is and how it works.
Yeah, and at that point you lost the job.
At that point you lost the job.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's part of anything. Like you have to stay on top of things, or else you're gonna fall really behind.
Exactly.
And to catch up.
Exactly.
I mean, old habits die hard, and it's hard to teach an old man new tricks.
Yeah.
So as long as you keep teaching yourself the new tricks, you'll be fine.
Yeah. And I think, like, I'll be honest, like every single one of us cinematographers who didn't go to film school, and even the ones who did, right? Like they go through YouTuber at university. It's just common. And a lot of people, hate on like the fact that YouTubers haven't done anything, or they don't have the resume or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's free online source content for you to learn from. Every one of us has learned from it. I learned from it. That's how I began.
Yep.
Right. And I think it's important to the stuff you watch, to find value in the things you watch, regardless of what level you think you are, or where your ego stands, or where your pride stands, to find value in each and everything that you watch. Right. And if you do that, you're able to learn. It's just constantly being a student. I think even like working with people that perhaps, they perhaps like maybe haven't reached a level of career that you have. There's something to learn from those people.
Yeah.
Even people who don't have the style that you enjoy, there's something to learn from those people, right? Like if there's always something you can learn from somebody. And I think it's very important that like as a cinematographer, if you're evolving as a cinematographer and you're trying to learn, to not be too picky and, with, I can only learn from blah, blah, blah because he won an Oscar. So I can only learn from Roger Deakins. I don't want to learn from who is this person? Like, who am I going to learn from Gerald Undone, for example? Not to bash on him at all. Like, I like Gerald.
It's a little bit of under the bus kind of
vibe. I like Gerald. I actually personally like Gerald. I watch him a lot. But, like, I like Gerald. But, like, you know what I mean? Like, some people might see that and they let their pride get in the way. Bro, like, you can learn from anything. And just to go back to Joe, like, I'm not bashing. He's actually super freaking smart, right? Like,
hey, listen, I don't know.
He knows way more technical stuff than even I do. But
I know.
Regardless, you know what I mean? Like there's some people like that. I find that in this, like I found in the community that a lot of people are very like, they got this ego. And I think
ego-driven industry in a lot of ways. Everyone says that.
It is, yeah. And I think that sometimes you have to just like the ones that evolve are the ones that let go of that ego.
I agree with that. Yeah, I think, like you said, there is always something to pick up from anything you consume if you're willing and open to accept that that's possible.
Yeah.
If you think you can't learn from someone, you're never going to learn from them.
You're never going to learn. Yeah.
But if you just accept the fact that everyone has unique experiences, unique perspectives, fuck, you could be on set with a 22-year-old. You might think that you're a veteran, but this person could be the next.
Let's kiss the phenom.
Yeah,
maybe.
Spielberg, you know what I mean?
Exactly. You don't know what he's going to be.
Yeah.
You don't know who he is.
Unless you decide to open yourself up to even allowing that to be possible.
You have to. And I think that's the thing is like, it's not just learning like lighting. It's like, it's a lifestyle. This is a culture. Right? Cinematographer is a culture, it's a lifestyle. And everyone's different. Everyone has their own rituals. Everyone has their own routines. You got to learn, you can learn so much things more than just lighting or just camera or just lenses.
Yeah.
Maybe the way that they operate and the way that they command their team or the way that they speak to directors or the way, how do they get hired in certain things that you can't get hired on?
Exactly.
There's so many other things that you can learn from these people. That if you tell yourself to not like that, I'm too good or I'm better than this, I'm too good for this, I'm too good for that.
You're toast.
You're just really capping yourself in the foot.
Yeah, you're gonna be stuck in a certain time. Like,
exactly.
You're gonna be 2022 Danny forever or whatever.
Exactly. You'll never get better.
Yeah, and it's weird.
Yeah,
exactly. But again, like I think that's a process, I guess, to like build that self-awareness.
Yeah.
So, practically speaking, what content do you consume? Like, what do you like on YouTube right now? Like, who are some of the guys that you follow that you're really getting a lot of, that you're always going back to,
On YouTube, there isn't many. I'm not going to lie. I think because I overly consumed a lot of people like already. Like I watched all the content of Warner DP, literally every single video that he's put out there.
So we'll find, and then YouTube aside, overall World Wide Web, what's some of the for I guess cinematographer who's watching this, who's maybe younger, what kind of resources?
To be honest, I've been really looking at like talent from like agencies, like high-end agencies, like Sesslers, and like been watching like actual, not only high-end agencies, but like the DPs that
are repped by them.
That are repped by them.
Yeah.
And I watch their work because
that's cool.
Like I like watching, almost, I guess you can call it local talent. I don't know what you want to call that. aspect or that league of directors of photography, but I like to sit there and I like to watch their content and see what they're doing. Even some of the guests that we have on here.
Yeah.
Right. Like I was a big fan of Nick Pilecki before I got him on this podcast. Right. So like looking at his work, and I'd be looking at certain people's work here, and I'd be like, that's a work that I study, because I think like all of us can study, can study Roger Deakins and all the big names, Bradford Youngs and all that kind of stuff. Like we can all study that, but let's just be real. You're not going to get those gigs yet.
Yeah.
Maybe in the future, right? Everyone eventually, somebody's got to get it, right?
Yeah.
There's got to be new line generations DPs, but
yeah.
as of right now, like I'm not even near that level of cinematographers yet, right? So it doesn't almost like, to me, enjoying their work is more about enjoying their work. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, than really dissecting it and understanding
instead of
it.
fully dissecting it, because there's so much of it that I probably don't even like know what's going on. You know, like
look at some of Deacon's films, right? Like,
exactly.
It's crazy. It's crazy
the
amount
of
budget.
stuff. Yeah. Like you're seeing like all how much of it's green screen, how much of it is art department, how much of it is so many different things.
Yeah,
that get involved in it.
100-person crews. Like it's there's levels, and I think that's cool. Like to study the next level that we're trying to break into.
Exactly.
Of like, let's say the high 6-figure commercial work.
Yes.
Because that's the next step. It's like, okay, what are they doing? What makes them unique? Because there's each cinematographer has their own, I guess, stamp, perspective, vision. Because you can see that. That's why people are repped in the first place. There's agencies for a reason. People are going to be have certain, I guess, tendencies and certain, I guess, like ways of seeing cinematography, and that's how they shoot, how they lens a project.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. So are there any agencies that you're looking at right now besides like Sessler?
They're one of the main ones. I think they're right now, they're the main one.
Yeah, it's big. Right? It's big.
Like I'm also really into coloring, because I know how much that plays into like my the work, right? Into the craft. So, obviously like I follow Alter Ego, and like I look at a variety of like different things. Like I don't have like a specific, like I'm going to target this. Like back then when I was learning, sure. Like Warner DP was my go-to.
Yeah, I know.
Right? Like he was just the guy who was like, every time he released a video, I'm watching
everyone's guy.
He was like, well, I don't know. Some people haven't heard of him, surprisingly, but
yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, I think there's some people that maybe, I'm going to segue into this because it's it's a whole other thing, but like sometimes cinematography, when it gets too simplified, a lot of people might think it's too simple for me. You know what I mean?
So when he numbs it down?
When he numbs it down, like to the point of framework, like I even caught myself at some point being like, okay, here comes the framework again. And he's saying the same thing, saying the same things. But then you start to realize, you're like, well, how do you build a good habit? Yeah. By doing the same thing. By learning the same things, hearing the same things.
It's like wax on, wax off kind of thing.
Exactly. Like you have to, that's part of the game, right? Yeah. That's part of the game. And so, like I'm even noticing similarities in a lot of the like DPs that I look at. Like I'm noticing similarities in their looks, the similarities in like how many different cameras are there?
Yeah, have you noticed that? Like I've the more commercial content I consume, because I'm in the same realm of like researching I guess the ad agency world. Yeah. I'm starting to realize a lot of the stuff looks the same.
It does. It's all the same.
Yeah.
And that's what's like, eventually it's going to change. Obviously the new fads are going to come out, but like that's the game. You have to know how to service what people are looking for. And right now what you're seeing is what people are looking for, right? And
it's a standard right now.
It's a standard, but given the things that we're seeing at that level are very difficult to achieve.
That's the thing.
These people like mastered their craft. Yeah. Essentially.
No, it's amazing. Like, and it's cool to see. Like, there's trendsetters too. Yeah. Like, you can see when new things are coming. Like, there was a time when like anamorphic was massive. It still is, but it's like,
still pretty big in the feature film world. Yeah. At least. Yeah.
And then like all these classic wide angle like close up shots. Like it's like that's really big. Yeah. And it's like, okay, and then even like the black and white or the VHS like style like
they're film fads that come in.
It's like these like trends. Yeah. But it's interesting to see like that progress, and because if you look at an ad from like 20 years ago versus now, how do we get to that point? Like there's like a progression.
There's a slow progression, and there's trendsetters, and trendsetters are it's they're unicorns. Yeah. Everyone wants to be a trendsetter. It's tougher to do that kind of stuff. I would say you never really focus on that. That's why for me my path has always been stay true to yourself. And if you're meant to be that trendsetter, one day you will be, right? Like
it's also directors, right? They like who you team up with as a director is
very
massive.
important. Yeah. Very important because the director is the visionary overall.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So but yeah.
So you're consuming content. What else do you do? What else do you do? Like, I know you're big on actually just consuming content for fun, whether it's TV
100%.
shows and films.
Everything I watch.
Because that's not purely like that's not directly educational.
No.
The education is maybe like tertiary or like down the line of like why am I consuming this?
Yeah.
But
it's kind of like culture building.
Yeah.
Right. Like I've always been like, cause I grew up with a martial arts background, right? I did karate when I was growing up. And so like one of the things I learned in karate. I
didn't even know that you did karate.
Yeah. As a little boy. Yeah. I got myself beat up a lot.
Hopping around.
Yeah. Hopping around like a little boy. And like the thing with karate is what do you learn? You learn discipline and you learn repetitive routine. So you throw the same punch a million times, right? It's cultivating yourself in a lifestyle that you want to be involved in. And so that's what I do with my content. Like sometimes put something on because it looks pretty. Like I'll watch it because it's pretty, Yeah. Not necessarily because I care about the story or that I like the movie or TV show, whatever it is. But you watch it because you immerse yourself in the culture. You have to be in this industry. I think one thing that is very like, it's, how can I say this? It is probably one of the most like important attributes to have in this industry as a cinematographer is you have to be obsessed with your craft. I think you won't go very far if you're not.
It's like anything, I think.
It's like anything.
Any career.
Like, and I'm not just talking about like how do you be great, whatever. That's a whole other level of obsession. I'm talking to get to a higher level, to get to the highest level, because every single buddy there that is making big things are obsessed in their own way. Perhaps they're not as expressive about it, but they are obsessed. This craft is not something you can just part-time and read on a textbook every now and then like do it once and then you can do it again, right? This craft is every single time you land, especially when you get to higher level, not like the same stuff that you do all the time, but like every time you land on a set, it is different. Yeah. Everything's different. The challenges are different. The locations, everything's different. The team's different. The director's different. Producer's different. Everything is different. So you got to come in and you got to be able to adapt to every single thing. And the only way that you can adapt, just like in combat training, the only way you can adapt your martial arts is if you train martial arts over and over and over and over again. Right? You might beat one fighter, but then you go into another one, all of a sudden they're a totally different style. How do you adapt your style to that? And that's the kind of mindset that I have for cinematography. I might not always, like certain things that, certain styles that I shoot, like certain styles, like for example, high key corporate is probably not my style. High key fashion is probably not my style, right? But you have to understand your craft enough that if you were to put in that situation, you would at least know generally what you're doing. Yeah. You might not be the best at it, but at least you can generally know what you're doing. Yeah. So it's understanding that culture and building that culture within yourself. And how do you do that? You don't do that part-time. You do that because you're obsessed. Like, it's like what basketball players say to NBA players versus when they say, like, can street ballers be in NBA? Like, no, because the street ballers ball when they want the ball. NBA players ball on the days that they don't want to ball. Yeah. They're training constantly, right? And I think cinematography is one of those things. I take that training mindset. I will be training constantly, every single day, consuming something, thinking about something, regardless of whatever it is. Use my energy towards that. And if I keep doing that, like it's not one of those things where you see direct results. It's kind of like working out. You're not going to just see direct results because you did push-ups one day. You know what I mean? Like you got to keep going. Yeah. Right. And it's the same thing with cinematography. So I take that mindset because of the way that I grew up, and, martial arts has helped me big time with discipline and all that kind of stuff. And then, taking kickboxing and everything like that. So it's all like, the same mindset is just you keep doing it, and you might not be better than somebody one day. Like you might look and be like, this person's better than me. I'll never be this person. I'll never be as good as that person. But when the martial arts mindset is, you might have lost this person, but if you go back to the gym and train harder, maybe you'll beat them the second time. It's a constant way of getting yourself motivated, and that takes obsession. And I think that's not comfortable for most people. I think a lot of people see that as going too far, perhaps over dramatic. I don't know how you want to view it. It doesnit really matter.
I think that's how you lead to mastery of anything. Like and the good thing with you is that you love cinematography. So like it's not. I don't think it really feels like a job or like I have to do this today.
Yeah,
it's just natural, which is like, I mean, you found what you love. So that's like, most people can't say that. You work a 9 to 5, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. How can you tell someone who doesn't want to be there to try to master it and become obsessed? Like, fuck, like no one's going to do that.
Yeah.
So that's why, like, that's almost, you know, the Matrix mind of like, I'm going to just do what I can to get through this 8-hour, 9-hour day and go on about it.
I mean, we are creatures of routine, right? So I think at the end of the day, when you have a 9 to 5, not bashing as 9 to 5. So I'm just saying that when you do, like, you train yourself to almost efficiently get through the 8 hours every single day, or 10 hours, or whatever it is, hours that you work, right? And your whole mind every single day is just, how do I make it to Friday? Right.
Yeah, that's conditioned.
And you know what? If that's your life, I'm not bashing against that. That is, you got to do what you got to do. Right. But I'm just saying, as an example of this gig that I'm doing it's just different. It's a different lifestyle.
That's all that matters. It's not like, it's not one's right, one's wrong. It is.
It's what's right for you. Yeah. It's what's right for you. So at the end of the day, like, you know, like, that's the same thing. It's the idea of conditioning your mind for certain routines. And I think, you know, 9 to 5, you're still doing that. You just don't realize you're doing it. You're obsessing over how to get to Friday. Well, I'm obsessing how to get better as a cinematographer. It's no different. Yeah. It's just where your mind goes, where your energy goes. It's the same thing.
Yeah. I see that. A little off topic, but now let's bring it back to gear.
Yeah, let's bring it back to gear.
I want to start in the beginning. Start with pre-production.
Right.
What tools, as Danny the DP, what are some of your favorite tools? It doesn't have to be a big list. Maybe you can put that in the description. But
I would say my iPad is one of my favorite tools.
Yeah, the classic Danny iPad.
Yeah, I love the iPad because I love to draw and I like to be visual with how I plan things and what I do. I'm not the best at it. It's quite messy, but I understand it. It helps me understand everything, right? Okay. And so I like to diagram, and I like to, you know, go through different scenarios in my head and just try and create like lighting diagrams. Yep. I also love like Artemis, Sunseeker. Those things are, I think, essential.
Staples, yeah.
They're staples. So you need to have that, I would say, as a cinematographer.
Yeah. Someone on the set has
to have it. Somebody needs it on a scouting day.
Yeah.
Other than that, like,
you know, Milanote.
Yeah, I like Milanote because, you know, any way that you can communicate with your team, because that's your job, man. Like, that's more than half your job. That is your job before you get on set. Is how do you communicate and lead a team? Yeah, you know, into a shoot. So
you also
Milanote's great.
Shot deck, frame set,
frame set. Like, those are great for references and reference photos,
building mood boards.
Yeah, exactly. I love like different music sites. Like,
just to listen to for inspo,
because I find, at least for me, I like using music to kind of inspire the mood that I'm looking for. So I listen to certain things, and like, you can use real songs too, right? Because if you're not the editor, then you can use real songs too. But music's 100%. A great source, I think, to find inspo.
Yeah, I've always like, I always wanted to play with the idea, because we always build mood boards for projects. Like, build a mood video with stock footage and like even reference clips and add a track to it. Yeah. It doesn't have to be reflective of the final piece, but more like I said, the mood. Yeah. This is the tone I'm going for.
However you can communicate, the more you can communicate and more effectively you can communicate your vision as a director, photographer, the better. Yeah. Like, everyone understands, you know, a lot better when you're able to communicate. So I think whatever tools you can use to draw, to visualize, to note to organize your thoughts in, use that.
Exactly.
Whatever that is.
And whatever you enjoy.
Whatever you enjoy.
Makes your life a bit easier and your team's life a bit easier too. Okay. Let's get the production. Yeah. On set. What are some of your favorite lights right now? That's not to be like, oh, this is like the essential kit for shoots. But what are you enjoying right now? I think I have an idea of what it is. We're using them currently.
For sure. Yeah.
But we get to hear it.
Yeah, no, my favorite are Asteris by far.
Easily.
Like, and the funny thing is, I was never a tube light guy. I know. Right? I've always said, man, let's just get a cob light as powerful as it possibly can go.
Through the window.
Through the one you can do, through diffusion, we can change it, whatever. And I still stand by the fact that they are the most versatile light, sure. Right? But just having something light and nimble. And when you start to evolve like an eye for what looks good, and you can take a tube light, and because you can just literally move it anywhere without any stands, like, how many times have I wrapped a face with a tube light? Yeah. You know, and because you just know, like, if you just kind of angle it off like this or whatever,
feather
like,
it a little bit.
You can feather it a little bit, and you start playing with the wrap and everything. Like, it just depends, like, on what shots you're trying to get. Obviously, you're not going to be able to do that on a wide, but like on the close ups, all right, instead of bringing in a 4x and then your 300 or 600D inside and then having to re-rig it and then having to reframe, like sometimes it's a little easier just to grab a Astera and go.
At the end of the day, light is light, right? It behaves the same way depending on how it's modified. And obviously the intensity of the light. But if you know the basic principles, you can use
anything. Like I think versatility with lights has become more important as I evolve in this career.
Dude, and the Asteras have been so clutch on our show.
So
it's almost like it's like this new realm has opened up and you can't go back. You can't go back to the non-tube light days. You can't go back. Like now it's always overhead rigging and we're always planting them.
The thing with tube lights is like I feel like for a while, I don't know if it's still going on because I don't consume this content, but like I think for a while they've been used as like the lazy light. The lazy man light.
It was kind of also
stick it here, stick it there.
In the shot.
Put it in the shot here, put it in the shot there because it looks cool and you got 2 lines now or maybe 4 lines going across and put effect on it and you got cool stuff. Right. And I feel like it's been
kind of lazy.
It's kind of like the lazy man light. And what I find called the lazy man light. But if you know how to use it and understand what it actually does, just the versatility.
Yeah. Essential.
Like sometimes it could save you like 3-4 stands. We know how difficult it is to like when you got to carry around like 3 extra stands. That's a lot of extra stands. Right?
For a small crew,
that hurts. You know, and the more you can save on that, the better. And the fact that they're battery powered, you can bring them outside, you can do whatever, you tune them any color you want. I think versatility has really helped because you're not going to always get gigs where you have a full team, at least not yet, right? Not until a certain stage of your career.
Yeah.
So like this, I find that Asteras helps me just like bring it anywhere. But you know, like even smaller lights for me have become like, I just enjoy smaller lights
like
now.
The 60X.
Yeah, like the 60X, I find a lot of uses for it. Or like, you know, like put something on a spotlight, like these light mats, for example, even. Like, do I need a light mat 4x4? Or do I just grab a 2x2 that is literally a quarter of its price and ultimately has great light quality? And yeah, you know, it's not as like, you know, like you can't bang it around and it breaks pretty easily, you know, and it's not the most, you know, greatest, like key grips probably hate this thing.
Yeah.
Right. But like at the end of the day, like if you're just using it for you and you're just trying to get something done, like you just need a light up there. It's so easy to grab one of these light mats.
Yeah.
You know, and to me, I've been a fan of light mats now because they're just something that you could just create pools of light with. And so, you know, I don't really believe in, I used to be this guy, but you don't get too caught up on numbers, on the brightest light possible and all that kind of stuff. If you don't understand even what a bright light does, why the hell do you need a 1200D?
Yeah.
You know, like you don't need an M40 unless you understand why you need an M40.
Yeah.
Right? Like you have to be able to differentiate what you need. And a lot of things that we do, we don't need M40s, right? We're not doing like 24 mil, 20 mil, 18 mil, 16 mil, like wides where we're seeing all this space and we got to compete with the sun. You know, the one time that we did, you know, the times that we do, you obviously rent that stuff out, but you always have to keep in mind, like, hey, if you don't need that wide, then, and you're shooting everything on a 35 or 50, then, you know, you probably don't need an M18.
Bring in the light mat.
Just bring in a light mat. Bring in Asteras. Bring in that stuff. Like, it's all just understanding what your tools are and what you need. And I feel like at like 1200D is like one of my favorite like lights when it came out. Like it's one of my favorite. But I find it that I'm using it less only because I don't feel like I need it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I don't need it in a lot of situations, but sometimes I do. Sometimes we're shooting up against glass and I don't know what the outdoor is going to be. So I got to bring the most powerful light because I got to diffuse it. Right. And I know we're going to shoot wide. Like there's situations where you do. But I find that almost always I need my Asteras.
Every time.
Almost always I need my Asteras.
Especially with the ability to rig them in almost every possible way in different environments. You can't rig a 1200D on a ceiling.
Exactly.
In an office. You know, it just doesn't make sense.
An office ceiling, like you're not gonna be able to take a 1200D and shoot it, you know, in a cubicle filled office.
Tight
like
space,
where are you gonna get that? How's the 5-foot softbox gonna fit there?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Like, and so you got like situations where, okay, well, I can get a 2x here, maybe stick a cloth up, a 6x or 8x cloth up, you know, on a T-bar and just shoot. And there you go. I got my soft light. I don't need, you know, a lot of power because I'm not looking outside. Maybe, you know, I'll just.
So what are you saying? You bring the 120Ds back? Out of retirement? That's what you're saying.
Well, I mean, the 120Ds,
Mark 1s too.
They got that little green tint, at least the ones that I've seen. But
it's okay.
You know,
no one cares. The CRI doesn't matter. It's all right.
I mean, but the thing is, realistically, you can make those work.
I was actually thinking about that recently. I saw some guy selling 2 120D Mark IIs, and I'm like, you can make those work for something.
You can make those work.
They're very light.
It just all depends. Like, it all depends on the look you're going for, and just realizing, like, you know, what ambience you are usually going into. Right? If I'm going in and I'm usually shooting in places with a lot of windows, I'm gonna need power. It's just obvious. But if you're going into like storage spaces like this, 2 Amarans, Asteras, you're fine.
Easy work.
Exactly.
Okay. What other tools are you into besides lights? Let's say, like, what do you just bought an easy rig, like
so
upgrade.
So I would say, like, take care of your body, and I don't know if I'm one to be able to lecture on that, but
do yoga?
Like, but like, I mean, on a technical aspect, perhaps not on the physical aspect, but like on a technical aspect, like, Easy Rig I think is one of my favorite tools because, like, the cameras, they get heavy, and no matter how brave you think you are, like, I used to be the guy that carried around a 50 to 100 Sigma on a GH5 handheld on a wedding for 12 to 14 hours.
Yeah, it's just reckless.
And it's just reckless. You know, it's a stupid mindset of like sitting there. Like, it took me a while before I was like, you know, maybe I should get a monopod, you know, when I used to do weddings.
That's devastating.
And I think Easy Rig has become one of those things that is just like, I realize how important it's a career extender. It really is.
It's a non-negotiable.
It's non-negotiable. And it's honestly, it's expensive. And I've used the cheap ones before and I don't like them. I can't stand those cheap ones. I don't know, something about them.
Like the, what are they called?
The fly cam or whatever it's called. Yeah, the Chinese brands.
Yeah.
Like, I don't recommend those. Like, again, if it works for you, it works for you. Go.
It's like the classic.
But
it's the classic. Like, we talk about this quite often.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, if you sometimes you cheap out a little bit because, like, you know, this is probably fine. It never is.
Never.
And you just wasted $1,000 and you got to spend $8,000.
And now you got, exactly.
It's like, fuck.
Exactly.
Like, I got the FS5 right back then.
Yeah.
I needed some fucking basically a camera that doesn't stop recording.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, like I can afford the FS5. I was fine with it. I had an A7 III.
Yeah.
They'll match.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm still not mad at that camera, but I am mad at it.
It serviced the time for when you needed it.
I used it like 3 times. I honestly maybe less.
That's a different story then.
Less than 10 for sure.
Right.
But you know, it just usually if you buy once and you know what you're doing, you know when you're cheaping out,
dude. Yes. So yes, whatever you buy, you have to calculate the external costs that come with it, right? So if you're gonna buy a C500 or you're gonna buy an Alexa Mini or a Red, like, get yourself an Easy Rig. Get something to support it, right? Because why would you want to put $30,000 or $50,000 after it's rigged out to $100,000 hanging on a string because you want to save a few $100?
Yeah.
Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, I understand we're all in financial situations. Well, then don't buy it then. Yeah. Don't get it yet.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Rent it. Yeah.
Just rent it for now or save up because everything comes with cost. Like Asteras. One charging cable broke on the Asteras. Doesn't work anymore. Yeah. I had to go look for a charging cable and they only sell them in sets of 8. So a little piece of cord that should cost me like $5, I'm not spending $80 on. Yeah. Right? Like, Easy Rig, same thing. I bought the Mini Max because at that time I just needed something to help me with my back. Then I realized my rigs are getting too heavy. I'm putting monitors, I'm putting tear decks, I'm putting all this stuff on it. They're getting too heavy. It's exceeding the limit. So now I have to go instead of spending, one time buying the Vario for like $5-6 USD. Now, you know what I mean? I've spent a total of like $8 USD because I bought the Mini Max originally. Yeah. I understand there's stages of it. Like, everyone has stages that you have to go through. You build it up, and I'm not like bashing the idea of building everything up. You don't have to buy the best of the best all the time, but you got to buy what like literally supplements or works with the stuff that you currently have.
Yeah.
Like, if you have an A7S III, you don't need a Ronin 2. Exactly. You don't need a Movi Pro, right? You just need an RS2 or RS3 now, right? You don't need all that stuff.
Yeah.
But if you could buy a 1200D, you're not putting that shit on the $20 aluminum newer stand.
Yeah.
Get yourself a combo stand and get yourself a good one. You know what I mean? Like, you have to accommodate for those as well.
It's the classic, like, especially if you're like if you acquire gear and you're like a solo operator and owner operator, It's the classic. Once you upgrade one thing and it's a big part of your kit, like once you upgrade one of the key pillars, like you upgrade your camera, or if you upgrade one of your lights, next thing you know, everything else you had before is irrelevant.
Everything.
It's like I used to buy C-stands. Now my C-stands are pretty much obsolete because the lights are not made to be on C-stands.
And you can't trust your C-stand anymore.
I have a C500 Mark II. I have Canon L lenses. Like, is it really doing justice to the sensor? Not really. Right. And it's just like, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you buy a Canon C500. You're buying a cinema camera, and a cinema camera is meant to be operated with teams. And you buy a photography lens on it, and all of a sudden it's like,
what are you doing?
That's a solo, like, you know, operator type operation. Of course, you can get beautiful images from it.
Yeah, there's room for it.
Regardless, but at the end of the day, you're not serving its purpose. So you're not really getting the full extent of what you're getting. I think that's the one thing is like buyer's remorse is one big thing in this industry. And I think like you get one thing, you're like, I should have just got the Matthew stand. Why the hell did I get the newer one? You know, and it's like the Steris, for example, like I thought I'd buy this whole charging kit and I'll be done. I was wrong.
I know.
Didn't come with wing plates.
Yeah.
So I got to find wing plates and they don't sell them anywhere. Well, at that time, they didn't sell them anywhere. So now I'm freaking out. I'm like, how am I going to mount these things? You know, so I got these tubes, but I don't know how to mount them, right?
Yeah.
So like you got to do your research, man. You got to do your research. You really got to like whatever you get, you want to get the most out of it. So it's not just affording the price tag of the actual item, but like
it's kind of with me with the pro photos.
Yeah.
You know, I was rocking Godox strobes for a while. Very serviceable piece of kit. Had like a nice 4-light setup, all the modifiers I would want. And then we had the athleisure shoot come up, and I'm like, fuck, like the Godoxes don't last on sports shoots.
They're not gonna do it.
They overheat and they die.
Not gonna do the trick.
Yeah, so I'm like, knowing me, the extreme version, I could have easily rented these lights. I said I buy 2 B1Xs and 2 D2s.
We talked about that. We're like, hey, maybe we should rent it. And next thing you know, I got them.
Yeah. Honestly, a bad financial decision because my jobs currently don't really need pro photos,
right?
Except for the high booster stuff.
Yeah.
And just spending 25 grand, and it's like,
you know, it's part of the game. When I bought the Ursa, I didn't need the Ursa.
I know.
I just wanted it.
But then I think you exhausted the Ursa.
Yeah, but you know, not in the way that I should have. Right, the Ursa.
It should be doing the jobs that we're doing now.
Exactly, and that time I wasn't.
3 years ago, whatever.
I wasn't doing that, you know. And you know, what was I doing? You know, but we all make these mistakes.
Yeah, it's a little, I guess, ego / like I'm a tech guy. I want to get the kit. Like
I want to get the latest thing.
Christmas vibes.
Yeah, I want to get whatever YouTube is telling me to get. You know, and I want to be the cool guy who's the first one to get this and first one to get that. I get it. It's all part of the game, but like, yeah, at the end of the day, you gotta be smart, and you know. But
we all fucked up at some point.
Yeah, exactly. But at the end of the day, like to go back and just rewind a little bit back about like the best tools on set.
Yeah,
I would say like Asteras and light mats. Light mats, I think, are the best use case. It's, you know, beginners perhaps can learn from this more so than people who already know.
Yeah,
you know, but like. I think light mats are probably the best case for like top lighting when you can't get a giant skirt and a 20 by butterfly up above you, and like you're not hanging, you know, sky panels S60s up top and creating this giant, you know, skybox. You know, light mats are a good fast way to do it because they're light, they're nimble.
Very light.
And typically, like at least the Amarants come with a really long cord. I think the light mats as well do too. So if you want to like do top light, I would look into like light mats. If that's like your thing and you want to get into, you know, if you like Asteras are great for hair lights, I think for top hair lights. They're also good for top lights, but it's a little trickier to diffuse them, right? Like the modifiers are not cheap on those damn things. Those damn modifiers are so expensive. Just to get a grid is like 300 USD, right? So it's insane. And you got like 8 of them. So, you know, it adds up. So, you know, I think Asteras are, my personal opinion, are great for like practicals, like kind of practicals in the streets, you know, like a fluorescent
to light spaces,
replacement to light spaces and create pools of light that way.
Yeah.
And the best thing is because they're so accurate in their color, you are able to take them and tune them to the practicals that already exist. Right. So that's the one advantage of RGB, I'll say, is sometimes RGB is not so much about creating blue lights and stuff like that and creating fancy colors, but it's also being able to just match practicals, being able to tune in exactly where you want them. That makes the background that much more interesting. Right. So if you're able to make one a little bit more green and one a little bit more magenta, it can emulate real life a little bit better. and then it makes sense in the shot because they represent fluorescence, right? I think cob lights, where they come in handy, is one, obviously for key lighting, but one thing I love to use them for is they are the hard punch of light, right? They're the hard light source these days, the affordable indie owner operator hard source, when you
soft
can't,
hob.
Yeah, you can't get the HMIs, so you're going for like a soft hob, or you're going for a hard beam, or you're trying to emulate sunlight. I think that's where cob lights actually shine. I think there's better ways to get like soft sources on interviews. I think that's where panels come in. I think for me, because you're coming already from a panel. So if you're going to S60 or aperture PC 600C or 300C, right? You're going into a panel light. I find that panel lights are already soft. So when you're shooting it into another soft source, you're getting a really nice soft light. So I typically now, especially recently, have really liked S60 and really liked the Aperture Nova. But when it comes, you can still do it with like a softbox. You can still book it with a cob light. But I find that the cob light is most effective as a hard source. And when you're able to marry hard and soft, I think that's when your work starts to be very dynamic. So now, when you combine all the tools together, right? You got a beautiful soft source coming from up top. You got Asteris filling in your ambient for different colors or different matching kind of like what makes sense in your space and doing your space. And then you got your sun coming in from your cob light, and then you got your panels for your soft source to key. That's just a general like walkthrough
overview
of like the tools that are available to you and how to use them. And of course, as you understand them more, the more you can break the rules with them.
Yeah.
Right. And the more you can start doing other things and being a little bit more fancier with them.
That's a good little crash course on how to light a space.
It's a crash course on how to light a space. Exactly. All the secrets are out there.
Yeah. Basically, the biggest thing is like, I think once you understand like how light actually just exists in the world,
you
basically just try to just recreate what that is. And
pretty much, yeah.
Like it's you're just almost trying to bring it back to reality.
That's it. Yeah.
That's why I like them from 45 degrees. It doesn't look
ever natural because you never
the sun?
You never have a 5 foot softbox lamp in the street like hitting you at 45 degrees.
Imagine people just had lamps in their living rooms over that 4x4.
Exactly. It doesn't exist, right? Like you have a sun that's a hard source that's bouncing all over the place from building to ground to wall and then hitting you, right? So that's the thing is it's just understanding, like if you're able to go out and just observe the world, just observe how light is bouncing everywhere, observe practicals and how they hit the wall and how they bounce and how they affect the portrait of somebody, right? And you look and you just acknowledge that and you're like, that's really fascinating. And just bank those thoughts. And that will help you create like, okay, I remember seeing this really nice like slash hit across somebody before when I was sitting in the car, and I was like, hey, that's a nice light on you. You bank it, and then next thing you know, you go and you do a car shoot scene. You're trying to emulate what you saw, right? All of it is just trying to emulate what you are inspired by, and not trying to recreate what the rules are. And that's one thing I definitely, always advise against is don't get too caught up in the rules of lighting, meaning somebody coming to you and saying, you should have wrapped this more and added an eye light and then add a hair light and then add this. It's like, those are the rules. Fuck the rules is what I always say. Learn them, understand them, respect them, then fuck them. And that's how I always approach it, because the rules keep you restricted. If you feel like, oh, I can never get enough wrap, and if every single one of your images is Rembrandt lighting, like it just gets boring, man. Yeah, it's not realistic.
Yeah, and I think that depth, like the more I think about it, and the more even I look at images, it's like it is that combination of almost like intentional imperfections.
Yes,
like
that's a very good way to put it.
Like you said, like the hard slash, it's a little hot.
Yeah,
in the background or on the subject. That's actually how light exists.
That's how it exists.
That's why it looks good. But if you just have this soft, even light, it looks like an infomercial.
Exactly.
It's like, what is this?
It looks studio. It looks like it's created and curated, and that's just not real life, right? And perhaps that works for certain things and certain stories. I get it, right? Certain ads and all that kind of stuff. But overall, like I've always been a proponent of throwing in a hot spot in the photo.
Yeah.
And I always do that because it's like, guess what? You walk into a room, the room doesn't just light itself. There's somewhere where the sun is hitting that is hot and is bouncing all over the place.
Yeah.
So create that hot spot. Where is the source of ambient coming from?
Yeah.
If not from an internal source like fluorescence or whatever, right? So that's where it comes, like when the sun's going through a window, right? Like when you're driving a car. Well, it's sometimes especially when it's coming from the side, like it's got the window panel
flagging it.
That's flagging off the face. This is what creates that soft hop.
Yeah.
It's just stuff that you realize in real life, right? Now, do you always light every car scene like that? No.
Exactly.
That's the point.
Yeah.
Is you find like what makes sense for the story.
Yes.
And going with that. Sometimes you are going to go with the typical 20 by 20 soft source and go soft on everything, and there is no hard light.
Yeah.
But if you can find out and just that's what it just comes from being inspired. If you can find out what inspires you and how the story inspires you, then there is no right or wrong when it comes to cinematography. It's just what's right to you and what's right to the story.
That's a good way to end it right there, man.
Cinematography 101.
That's a quote. Jeez.
Cinematography 101.
That was good.
All right. So
Is that a wrap? There was an awkward ending again?
we always have to have the awkward ending.
100%. 100%.
Kettlemans.
If you know what Kettlemans is,
If you know Kettlemans,
that's high level.
yeah, we're not going to Kettlemans, so we're going to go meet Lil Ronnie.
Lil Ronnie. Oh, guy's a name.
Only ways up.
Sounds like a rapper. You know? Maybe he'll release a mixtape. We'll shoot his music video for free.